Welcome to Email and Beyond, the podcast bringing you all the latest email marketing and other complementary marketing channel tips, tricks, industry chat, brand insights, and more every 2 weeks. Join me, Kate Barrett, founder and CEO of eFocus Marketing, and Richard Wall, marketing campaign manager at Spotler, as we talk you through the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing and how you can create a more intelligent strategy that gets results.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Email and Beyond. I'm Richard Wall, marketing campaign manager at Spotler.
And I'm Kate Barrett, founder of eFocus Marketing.
Because this episode's going out around Halloween, we thought we'd do some scary marketing, things that get people worried, and we're gonna try and debunk some of them. It's not just a campfire story. Things that, like, the Yahoo update has been a big one since we were last on air.
Yep.
I want to talk a bit more about GDPR because that works as a case study for this, and I think there's a lot of similarities. And then we'll talk about some like your results can change, things do go wrong. Let's be honest about this.
Yes.
Like, no one's ever run a perfect career without making an error.
No.
And so we'll share a couple of those from our own stories from clients and things, and like you see, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
After that,
should we start there? Should we start with that? Because I think something that I'm not so bad with it now, but I've been doing this a very long time. We won't say how long. Not so much now, but I remember right back at the beginning of my career, the scariest thing was pressing the send button.
Oh yes. Yeah.
You would literally sweat as you've got your like, do I send it? Is it okay? You've checked it 100 times, and then I think for me, certainly back at the beginning of my career, that's the thing that I found the most. This is it. It's actually going out, and it's going to go out to 100,000 people. Now I think I've become a little bit desensitized. I'll press a button and it's off to 1 million in a second. But it's a scary thing putting that message out, especially when you're first starting. And I think even now, complacency is a scary thing in email marketing as well. Because
gone the other way.
Even myself, I sent out an email last week, and 2 seconds after I'd pressed the send button, and I'd done my QA and I tested everything, 2 seconds after I pressed the send button, I was like, shit, I forgot to change this bit of the subject line.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
Oh,
so it happens to the best of us, even almost 20 years in, it happens. We make mistakes. And I say to my son who's 6, it's not the mistake that you make. Mm-hmm. It's what you do about it.
Absolutely.
Afterwards. It's how you react to it. And I think, something that I'm asked about a lot is, do we send an apology email? If it's something major, yes. If you've made a little typo of one word in the email, no, don't worry about it. Yeah. If the links are wrong, if the information, if the pricing, anything like that, send out that apology email. And don't do something wrong on purpose, but I do find apology emails can get some quite good engagement with it. I'm sorry we messed up, or in the subject line, but don't do it on purpose. But look, it's the same with everything. You make a mistake, it happens to all of us. It's okay. Even if you're sending it to 1 million people, I've seen plenty of mistakes happen. I think one of the biggest ones that I read about, there's a couple. There was one years ago, I think it was pre-GDPR. Right. It was John Lewis and Waitrose. And I'm sure if you Google it, the news article's probably still there. But I think it was something like, I'm trying to remember now. People were on the John Lewis website. They would sign up for emails, and then they would automatically start to get Waitrose emails. Now, they're part of the same company. They're John Lewis Partnership.
But
separate companies, separate products, completely, one's food, one is clothing and homeware and things like that. So I remember that happening, and I think from memory it was just before GDPR, which is, to link into what you're going to talk about in a minute, one of the reasons why GDPR was good, because it made people go, hang on a minute, should I be using data in this way? Yeah. I need to respect it. And there was a big court case, and John Lewis lost, and they actually came out that they needed to have separate opt-ins for both of those, even though the same brand, partnership group,
There's
separate
entities
brands
within it.
that. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, even the big companies, you know, that's one example. And the other one that I can think of is Target, when they were doing personalization. And they were doing personalization around pregnancy and where you are in
Yeah,
pregnancy based on behavior.
I think I've heard
Not
this
known
one.
data, but behavior. Again, yep, Google it and you'll find
Yes,
the
I've seen
Target
it.
personalization story. And basically, they did a whole load of data analysis. Really clever stuff, really good stuff. But then they were too overt with it, to the point where they sent a woman an email. I believe she was a reasonably young lady who was pregnant but hadn't told family, hadn't
Mhm.
told anyone. And you know, her dad saw this email and it was, you know, like, you're pregnant, you're in your first trimester or whatever it was. Dad went into Target and went crazy, and it turned out that actually the products that she'd been buying, the predictive AI was absolutely right, but it was too obvious.
Yeah, too
Now, what
much.
they did was, which was really clever, they kept all the predictive AI, but they just made it more subtle. So it's that obvious versus subtle personalization. And I know we've talked in other episodes about this type of thing, but here it was very much Target then still put those products into the mix, but it was in the mix. So it might have been a baby product next to wine glasses, or you
Just in
know,
case.
I don't know if they sell wine, but you know,
Right.
that kind of thing. You know, it would really mix it in with things that one would assume would be very
Yeah.
anti kind of pregnancy type of thing. So, you know, look, we make these mistakes, but it's what we learn from them. It's what we do. It can be scary, but it's okay. It's what you do afterwards. And Target in that case made that change and went subtle with it. Still used the data, but went subtle. So going back to the example that I shared about John Lewis and Waitrose, everyone was so scared of GDPR. I mean, we're talking 2018 now, aren't we? So
Yeah.
quite a while ago now, as we're, you know, 2024. But everyone was so scared of it, and I think that what we see now with hindsight is the benefits. I mean, what's your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
it was sort of a good thing. Yeah,
100%.
I mean, if you had an email account in 2018, how many can we still please email you emails did you get? I
And
mean, I stopped
privacy
counting.
updates.
Yes, I
Like,
stopped
we
counting
don't
by about
care.
lunchtime on the first day that they
Right.
started coming
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
But then, if yeah, like you say, if you look at it, it was saying, you know, use this data responsibly in a way that your customers, your audience want you to use it. So do good marketing. And the Yahoo update, which is a terrible word, but it seems to have stuck around,
Yeah.
I think is very much the same thing. They go, oh my God, we can't send emails, we're going to have all this set up. What it's saying, if you can prove that you're a legitimate, reliable sender and you're who your target audience thinks you are, you're fine. It's the people that are trying to hide behind bad domains, legitimately malicious actors that are going to get hit by this. So we should be fine with it. We should, if you genuinely got cause to worry once you've read the detail of what Yahoo and Google are putting in place with DMARC and those other things, then yeah, that's a problem. But for proper email marketers, for want of which I'm sure you all are, then
Moralistic. Yeah. Is
yes,
that a
what,
word?
moralistic.
Moralistic.
I think I've heard
I'm
it.
going with it. I'm
Yes,
going with it.
it makes sense. But
Yeah.
if you're an email marketer working at a company that sells stuff that people genuinely need or want, you're going to be fine with these changes. And if anything, it's going to benefit you because it's sweeping a whole load of spam and dodgy actors out of your way and getting you seen.
So just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, so Yahoo Google, we're talking about the changes at Yahoo and sending it to Gmail
Yes.
accounts basically through Google. They have implemented, I was going to say, stricter needs in terms of your sending around your SPF, your DKIM, DMARC, all of those things that we would normally put in place. But they are basically saying, we're cracking down now. You need to have these things in place, which, to be honest, it's the same as GDPR, right? You should have had these things in place, ideally, for a long time. If you're sending email marketing, you should have an SPF record, you should have a DKIM record, and then in the last 5 years, DMARC has really kind of come up. And even if you've got it as a P equals none record, put it in place, start looking at those
Yeah.
records coming back and use that equals none. That's absolutely fine. So all Yahoo and Google, and actually it's quite nice to see them working together and kind of being friends on it and saying,
Yeah.
we agree on this. Not surprised Microsoft wasn't included in the gang, right?
They're not cool anymore.
They're the naughty ones in the corner. Yeah, absolutely. Not surprised they're not in on the gang. But all they're doing is saying these things that are best practice are actually, you have to do these now. Otherwise, you won't be able to get your emails through to us.
Yeah.
And GDPR was the same. You know, for 10 years before that, if not longer, as consultants, as people working in email marketing, we've been saying you need to respect your audience.
Yeah.
You need to be open, honest, and transparent when they're signing up with you about what you're going to do with the data. And all GDPR did was bring that into law. So rather than moral and best practice, it's law. And I think the really interesting thing that is going to be very scary for the US is seeing how those laws follow. Because we already had Canada do it with Castle. We've had Europe do it with GDPR. When is it going to come into the US? The US laws have to change at some point. They are, as a general in terms of can spam, I mean, I'd say they're reasonably lax, to be honest. You know, if you look at what we have now, but what we also have to understand, and the scary thing about marketing is that we've got multiple laws to contend with, right?
Yes.
So you've got all the laws if you're e-commerce and selling products, but from marketing, we've got GDPR, which is data. It's a data law. I'm not sure that the word marketing is actually in GDPR at all, maybe once, but if at all, it's a data law. It's what you do with the data, how you collect it, how you store it, record it, all of those elements. In the UK, we then have PECA, the Privacy and Electronic Communications Regulations. And there are various laws around Europe, around the rest of the world, and in the US, for example, state by state can have different. So like California have got their own laws in place. So all of these things, and this is the scary thing, have to kind of build on to give you a picture of that legality and what you can and can't do. But I think the underlying element of this is if you are following best practice, if you respect your audience, if you want to get the most out of them, if you want to nurture them, if you want to take them through that customer journey and life cycle, you should be doing these things anyway.
Yeah.
Really. So I think it makes it less scary, but when these big changes happen in the industry, everyone panics because all of a sudden they have to do it. It's not just a choice. You have to do it that way. I think it's a good thing in the industry, though.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose one part of the issue is it's our world, whereas for the consumer, it's part of what they think about. They don't spend as much time. This probably ties back a little bit to talk about making small mistakes. That, you know, how many hours do you spend coming up with it, about designing the content, producing it, testing the stuff? Like it's a really big thing for you, and then someone reads it and goes, "Oh, okay, click." So the emotional investment, as we say, for the reader is so much less of it. As we'd love consumers to care as much about every single word and every single syllable that we choose as much as we do, but they don't. They've got so much more to think about, and that applies B2B or B2C, whether we're selling Converse or marketing automation software. Any marketers using a load of platforms, they're wearing loads of different clothes. They're also going buying food. They're buying home furnishings.
I think it comes back to everybody being human.
Yes, it does.
Right? So mistakes are human. You know, doing something perfect. What is perfect? You know, I think that is something that as humans and in our psychology and society, it's very much you can't make mistakes. You can't, you know, people are dragged down on the internet for the tiniest mistakes. And I think it can really make people scared of making mistakes
Yeah.
and of doing things wrong and wanting things to be perfect. You know, I think a great example with email marketing is when you're doing testing. Chances are you're actually going to run a test and it'll get a lower result
Yeah.
than your baseline, than your standard results. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a scary thing. That's a, we know this doesn't work for our
Yeah.
audience.
For the result.
That's cool. Absolutely. And I think there needs to be much more acceptance of mistakes in society and people being able to change them, whether you send out an email with the wrong link in it or
Yeah.
the wrong subject line like I've done, or to the wrong list. I mean, who hasn't sent an email to
Yeah.
the wrong list, the wrong segment? Or I've had clients who've suddenly phoned me up going, oh my god, we've just sent to a load of unsubscribes, like pre-GDPR. I mean,
Ooh, yeah.
post-GDPR you're in even more trouble, but pre-GDPR it was bad, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like chuck you in jail offense. That these things happen. Get over the initial panic and figure out, what are we going to do next? What's the thing that is our next step? How are we going to fix it? And I think the key thing is, don't panic. Don't get into that, the terrors and the
Yeah.
sweats from it, and all of those scary things. Just keep moving on. And I really do believe that, myself included, I think over, I won't say how old I am, but in my life, it's certainly been, mistakes are bad, you can't make mistakes. But I think we're starting to come as a society to go, okay,
What do you do about these mistakes?
exactly, yeah, we just have to stop, what's the word? The cancel culture, the panic, all of that, whether small or large, it's still something that we've got to think about. So when we're going into our day-to-day, we can do our QA checks on our emails, our quality assurance. We can do that. And actually a great way to help with that is to get someone else to do it. So if I was building an email, if I had done my QA checks, sending it to you to then do, because what other people can see, you can't always see. And it's like you said, we're so invested in it. We've spent so much time in it that you can't see a spelling mistake or whatever it is. So get that double checking, I think, is really helpful.
Feedback is a scary thing.
Oh,
anyway,
yes, can be.
And I still struggle with this. I'm gonna be honest. I've been doing content writing for a long time, and then I'll send off a white paper to the rest of the team, and they go, "Oh, can we change this?" I go, "No, what are you talking about? It's perfect." No, they want to make it better. They're not out for blood going, how can we wind them up this time? They're trying to make the thing as good as it can possibly be, and you get emotionally attached to something you've personally done internally as well. So I try and make it less scary, but I still get that sort of quite visceral reaction to, can we just change this? Like, no.
Yeah.
I like it.
I know.
I put this in.
Yeah, but even things like I was talking to your colleague Zainab a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I had very quickly chucked together a description for something that we were working on together. And she had come on the call and I'd popped it up on the screen and she'd immediately gone, oh, you'd written that with Chat GPT, haven't you?
Yes.
So again, and I was kind of like, and then I thought, hang on a minute. Yeah, I did. That's absolutely fine. And it's a draft right now and I'm going to edit it. And that's absolutely cool. But yeah, my initial reaction was,
be caught.
Oh, shit, I've been caught using ChatGPT. But I do a lot on ChatGPT now.
Yes.
And then, edit. Because I find, for me, the worst thing is a blank piece of paper. I need something to start from. I need something to give me that kind of inspiration. And actually using that technology now that we've got, really helpful for that. But technology is scary.
Yes, I was going to say, we should talk about...
Yes. Trying to figure out AI. I mean, I think we've got the scary of what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
But we've also got do you know what, things are changing. People, when ChatGPT first came out, oh my God, we're going to lose our jobs. That's it. But actually, I think we can use it to enhance our jobs. I know on season 1, we had a whole episode about AI. So check that out. But it's using it to make you a better person was the key thing we said there. Don't be scared of it.
Helping you do your job better.
Email and Beyond is a Spotler and eFocus marketing production. Spotler is the all-in-one sales and marketing software for small and medium-sized businesses. Our suite of products covers email marketing, website personalization and tracking, social media management, and CRM. If you want to find out more about how our software can drive your success, visit spotler.co.uk/email and beyond.
So as well as scary things, we've also got myths. And again, in season 1, we did a Room 101 episode.
Get rid of
chucking
those.
absolutely. Get rid of them. And I think this is a great episode to kind of just circle back on that. And again, we'll leave the link below. These myths, I think, put people into a fear of breaking beyond them. Best practice, you should do this. And there's best practice and there's morals and there's being conscious of your audience. And then there's being scared to do anything different. Being scared to try anything. And, oh no, the best practice says this, so I can't do anything different. Well, best practice is, for a lot of people, we've seen this work. But I always say to clients, if it's a recommendation from me, if it's a best practice, if it's a stat that they've seen on, somebody's research online, take it as a starting point.
Yes.
Start there and don't be scared to test it. Whether that's, short subject lines perform better than long subject lines. Well, I've seen plenty of cases where that doesn't hold true. So just because you read something or someone says, oh no, you shouldn't do that, unless it's a legal thing.
You should do GDPR. That's the one you should do.
Or unless it's something that could potentially negatively impact your customers. Even the Target example earlier, do you know what? They tried it.
Yeah.
They tried with the personalization, and the personalization worked. It worked too well.
Yeah.
They predicted before she'd even told anyone else. But don't be scared to try it. And do you know what? They went a bit too far with it, but then they went, okay, we went too far. Let's pull it back again. So don't be scared to try. Don't be scared to debunk those myths, to try them. And go back to the episode, and we talk about a whole load of different myths in season 1. But I think you've got to try. Just in life, you've got to try. Don't be scared of it. And if you can get the backing, if you can get the buy-in of your bosses, and you're in a culture that allows that, test it, do it.
So we do the Great British Split Test, which is testing all these different things year on, year out. The latest one came out a couple of months ago as we're recording. This one, the new one's in progress. It'll be coming out. So if you start seeing different things in your emails, that's why. But when I talk about it and present to people, I always launch with, don't look at the results, look at the tests. So, this thing that made a 63% difference in our click-through rate might not work for you at all. It might work better, it might work worse, it might have no impact. What we're trying to do is show you all these different things that you've maybe not thought about. So one of the things we did for a while was give people ludicrously inflated titles. Sort of Commodore and Major General and Super.
What were you? What was your job title? Got it. What was your title?
I think I was Field Marshal in one of them.
Field Marshal. Okay. So
we got to pick our.
Let's give a little bit of background. So Richard adopts, looks after, rehomes guinea pigs. So I think you should be General Guinea Pig or something like that. I think that should be your new job title. I'm gonna get your business cards printed up.
Major Guinea Pig.
I love that. Yeah, okay, Major Guinea Pig. Okay, there we go.
But so we did. So the split test in this case was Field Marshal Wall versus Richard Wall as the sender. That particular one, I don't think it made any difference. People were like, well, that's
obviously made up.
That's weird. But the content was what they were there for, so they went through anyway. And but the point is, like, if some of the titles, I think they make a difference. Yeah. I'll again link in the show notes the latest version and a couple of the historic ones that we've done and the results we've shared in the webinar presentations about it. But the point is, like, let's try it, let's find out. And I think we said just before the break, one of the things could be completely flat, completely parallel. If it doesn't make a difference, that's something your audience doesn't care about, so don't worry too much about it. If you get the same open rate with completely different subject lines, you don't have to put too much effort into the subject. So we did do one. We did was some subject lines that we'd written ourselves, and then some we fed ChatGPT the contents of the email and said write a 3-word subject line or a 5-word subject line, whichever it happened to be, that summarized this email nicely, and tested it. And in this case, human things won out every time. So that's something that AI is not currently capable of taking from us.
I think that's really interesting because, so if we look at platforms like Phrasee, for example, who've been around for years now, have that AI-powered platform that will create those subject line versions for you. And I know in that case, very much is that the AI beats the humans 99.9% of the time, or whatever the stat is. What I think is interesting here is the learning that that platform has had in order to get to that point versus what we input as individuals into ChatGPT or other AI platforms are available. I use that one as an example because it's just everyone's heard of it. Any of those platforms that are out there, they are looking generally. Whereas Phrasee is a very specific AI that is focused on email subject lines historically, and there's lots of other uses for it. But the general AI, so it hasn't learned yet about your audience. It hasn't had results necessarily fed into it, things like that. So I think, again, don't be scared of AI, but also understand it's not perfect. It comes back to what I said earlier, right? About Zainab going, oh, you use ChatGPT for that. There's certain phrases it will use, or if it doesn't have the learning. So unless you have built up that knowledge bank within it, whatever AI you're using, to learn your audience, the results of your campaigns, all of those types of things, that's interesting. But that's also scary, right? Because if people are relying on that without understanding that context, the results of it can be skewed in that way.
Because also, if everyone uses ChatGPT to share their subject lines, there comes a point where ChatGPT is learning more from content it originally produced than from human content. And is it going to know the difference?
But it's not learning from the results either. It's learning from just the input of people and what words they're using, and then it's adapting off of that. But it's not unless again, if you're using AI and uploading your results, then it can learn from that. Brilliant. But I think that's where I don't think AI is scary in that sense. I mean, like taking over the planet and facial recognition and stuff like that. That's a whole different in email marketing. I think the scariest thing is that we think we're doing it the right way, but we're not necessarily giving it all of the information. So I was doing some research recently, and just by changing 1 or 2 words in the description, I got a completely different output to the answer. So when you're playing around with AI, don't be scared of it, but fiddle, because just that tiny tweak, I was astounded at the difference in the output and response that I got just by changing my description by 1 or 2 words. It was amazing, and being specific, and also, again, with the learning, building on a conversation that I'd kind of been building for a couple of weeks, where I'd been asking it different things and I'd plugged in different things, and I carried on that conversation, asked it one question, then asked it in a slightly different way, and the answers were completely different.
One of the things that I put exactly the same prompt into ChatGPT and into Gemini, which is Google's
kind of native AI.
Yes, thank you. And you get very different response and very different styles. So one of the things that I do, because phantom facts is one of these things that's one of the scary things about AI, that it was making up court cases to reference. Like they found lawyers were putting briefs into ChatGPT, and it was making up non-existent precedents. So I mean, that's obviously that's a much higher impact situation than we're likely to face ourselves. But so the way that I started to get around it is I say, "Oh, give me 5 things to talk about in a scary marketing podcast," for example, or 5 challenges that people are facing with this particular marketing challenge. and it spits them out. And then I say, okay, thank you for that. Give me 5 sources with a good domain authority score that back up your points. And the sources it brings you and the way it presents them and what it comes from, what it picks up on. So one of them, I can't remember which way around it was, but one of them, it seemed to find a primary article and then cite the sources that article cited itself as the next 3 or 4 results. And the other one was pulling results from lots of different. And if the original article was good, then those other citations should be fine as well. But like we say, it's taking the time to understand what it's doing, how it's doing it, and why, and checking what the scary thing for me. I mean, not being able to write content anymore would be pretty scary for me from a professional point of view. And I don't think AI is at that replacing us stage, but you need to be not scared of what it can get wrong, but aware. Yes. Yeah. Be scared of taking it at face value. Yeah. Be prepared to push back and say, if it's coming up with something that directly contradicts your experience, have the confidence to say, no, that's not right. I'm not writing that. I'm not copying that. I'm using it. I want to dive in and either ignore it or dive into where it got the information from. Either it probably depends on the time scale of the project you're working on. At the time, I love nothing more than going down a rabbit hole of researching a really obscure topic and hopefully coming out with something to write at the end of it, but sometimes not. So, I think the scary thing is the dependence on AI, that AI can solve all your problems immediately. Well, it can, but it can also create a whole bunch of new ones.
This is the trouble when we jump on new pieces of technology without understanding strategy and all of that behind it. But I love what you said. I think be aware. I think with everything that we've talked about in this scary, terrifying episode, you have to put a little ghost going along across the screen for those watching on YouTube. I'll have Slimer in the corner. We'll have Slimer. Anyway, we go off topic. The scary thing is when you're not aware. The scary thing is when you don't understand that you don't know what you don't know. So I think whether it's a myth or a best practice that you're thinking, well, is this right? Go and try it. Go and try it, as long as it's not, illegal or going to put your audience to detriment. Give it a go. And if you do make a mistake, it's not the mistake you make, it's how you deal with it. So I think that's probably a good time for us to wrap up the scariness.
Positive ending on the scary episode. Exactly. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. So we will be back for our next episode in a couple of weeks. We'll see you again on Email and Beyond.
If you liked this episode, please follow us on YouTube and subscribe through iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts.